Welcome to the One Day at a Time Recovery Podcast, where my guests share their stories of addiction, how they recovered, and the tools and practices they use to stay sober now. Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's great to be here.
We're going to be talking about Rosebud, which is correct me if I'm wrong, if I misspeak about this, but it's an AI assisted journaling tool. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, we call it an interactive journal that makes journaling easier and more effective.
Yeah, it really has. So I've been testing it out and I have found that it's asking me like the deeper questions. There's actually a little button that says go deeper. And so I'm like, yes, 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 let's go deeper. It's been really interesting because there have been times when, especially if I'm going through something, if I feel triggered, if I'm having just like a hard day or whatever, but sometimes I don't have, like I need some prompts. And I've seen that there are journals that offer prompts, but it's such a different, I've been using it, so it's been such a different experience to just say, hey, here's what's going on. And then it comes back with insightful questions that for whatever reason, like I just can't access in my own mind. So it is like yeah, it is interactive and I've already found it to be really, really helpful. What prompted you to create this app?
Yeah, I mean the inspiration came from my own personal struggles with depression and just going through, you know, trying to understand what the hell was happening in my life that was
Yeah.
leading me to feel so terrible, right? And have this kind of I had a internal critic that was just very, very loud. And I think a lot of people might be able to um, you
Oh
know,
my
re
goodness.
feel that and have that. And so, as I was going through this process of just healing, I guess you could call it. I was doing therapy. I was very fortunate to start doing men's groups, which we can talk about and has been a huge part of my path. And I was journaling as well. And the even with all the things that I was doing, there were these moments, right, at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday where I don't necessarily have a therapist to talk to, and I'm journaling and I'm spiraling in my thoughts. And I just wish that there was something there that could help course correct, help me see what I was missing and reframe it, ask me the right question to push me and nudge me in the right direction. And uh, that feeling was what made me wonder, oh, could AI actually help me become more self-aware? And could we build a tool that uses AI in a way that helps people grow? And that's where the inspiration for Rosebud comes from.
I love it. It's so interesting how these tools typically come out of a challenging experience. You know, a lot of the, 12 step was actually born from people who had like a desperate need to get better. And so, yeah, it's sort of like one of those things where it's like the worst thing that ever happened to you can, be transformed into the best thing that ever happened to you. I always like to start off these conversations with a little bit of context about childhood, like how you grew up, because I really feel like the experiences that we have in childhood sort of shape who we are and how we behave as adults. And I know you have an interesting background growing up with parents that are immigrants, but tell me a little bit about what your childhood was like.
Yeah. So you're right. I grew up in Southern California in Orange County in a community that didn't have that as many immigrants in it, um, and my parents are immigrants, and I went to a Christian school while my parents were not Christian, and I was baptized and confirmed Christian, and
Oh my
and
goodness.
yeah, I've been
Were your
through.
parents were from Iran? Is that true?
Yeah, my parents were from Iran. They
Yeah.
came right during the revolution that happened there that a lot of Iranians left,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, so they weren't Christian, but I remember asking my mom, why'd you guys send me to Christian school? And she said, we just wanted you to have a relationship with God. And and I can, understand that now, later on. But for a kid, it was very confusing. I mean, I think immigrant children in general our children of immigrants can resonate with this feeling like, where do I belong, right? You have one culture in your community and one culture at home, which can create this kind of dissonance of like, who am I? People,
Yeah.
people who move around a lot are call it third culture. You're like a third culture kid. Um, so I think that was one aspect of it. And another aspect of it that I actually think, was what led to the mental health challenges that I had, is that my family didn't have a practice or culture of emotional, like processing emotions or even speaking about what was happening beneath the surface. And, we can get into this, but uh, my mom had some childhood trauma and she, right, coped with that by masking,
Sure.
right? And so we we had a dynamic growing up where it was just like we would not talk about what was happening beneath the surface, really, right? And we were just like try to keep things normal, try to smile. And what I think happens there is that there's this dissonance that got created between
Yeah.
what I was projecting and living in my external life and what was happening internally. And that dissonance, once it got strong enough through all the challenges and things that I had no way to process and deal with and speak to anybody about, eventually that led to, the gears grinding to a halt and depression. It feels like an impossible situation. You're just stuck in this place and you don't know what to do because you're just pinned between the internal experience that I was having and the external experience that I needed to project out to the world.
Yeah, that's a brutal place to be, right? And I think a lot of us that grew up in, like, I have an immigrant mom who came from Mexico City. My daddy's from Kentucky, but there was like even in my house some dissonance there. It was very confusing, and I feel like we all have like this need to belong. And I can't imagine that it's like you're living this double life, and we all just want to fit in and belong. But so many of us grow up with this feeling of like othered, like I'm not like everybody else, and I better not tell them who I really am, or I'll be rejected. I feel like is sort of the undercurrent. And so we do have to, like you said, like your mom, her survival skill was the masking, right? Who doesn't do that, right? But we feel like we're the only ones who do it, and it is so confusing. I had a mom that was like always putting on the happy face, so she could not tolerate any of my discomfort, right? She couldn't tolerate any of my pain. It was always like the bypassing. It was like, oh yeah, well at least this, or yeah, but this, and so constant dismiss. Did you experience that too? The constant dismissing of your pain?
Yeah, I think it comes out of, right, if somebody doesn't want to deal with if somebody can't deal with their own pain, they're
Right.
gonna they're gonna do that. And then that teaches me or us as children that, oh, this isn't something that's okay to feel. This isn't
Right.
something that's okay to express. I
Yeah.
have to just bury this, not talk about it. And it wasn't even a shame. It was just like, just redirect, right? If I did talk about it,
Yeah.
we just don't talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Everything's okay. Don't, just don't bring it up.
Everything's
Um,
fine. Nothing to see here. Keep it moving.
yeah, keep it moving, focus on the positive, right?
Yeah.
Focus on, everything's normal, and
Yeah.
things weren't normal, right? Like my parents had challenges. They ended up getting
Yeah.
divorced when I was around 12 or 13, which was actually really
Oof.
good for for like, it was good in a way because the tension that existed at home stopped existing. and
Right.
and
Yeah.
so that was great, but then there was the aftermath of that, and splitting homes, and that was a really formative period of, right, going from um, middle school or junior high to high school, And, speaking of belonging and going into a new environment and, having switching homes and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I think all of that together, right, just leads to led me to a place of feeling hopeless um and just severely depressed. And I've experienced depression majorly 3 times in my life. That was the first time when I was
At thir
around,
around the divorce, around year 13.
it was around 14, 15
Oh,
years
okay.
old.
So
Yeah.
the divorce happens and there's initial sense of relief, and then the other part kicks in, and it's the morning of the family breaking up. It's like that is a 14, 15. It's kind of like when your consciousness kind of comes online, your identity, your ego, your personality kind of comes online, and it's like, who am I? And things aren't going well. Like it makes
Yeah,
sense.
like I went to high school and I was like, oh, I'll be popular, I'll play sports, I'll, do the things, right? And I did that my first year and I still had that void inside of me. It didn't change anything, right? I still felt that despair on
Yeah,
some deep level. Like I didn't know who I was. I had all this stuff that was pent up.
right.
And um, and I think after that, I was like, what's the purpose of all this? Right? I did all this stuff. I'm trying to do everything right, and I still feel this void. I still feel like shit inside.
Yeah, that is a really painful place to be. Yeah. Did you have suicidal ideation? Like when you talk about hopelessness, like how dark did it get for you?
Yeah, it got very, very dark. I did have suicidal ideation. I have had that, you know, since then too. Um,
During your depressive episodes over
during
yeah,
yeah, during my depressive episodes, and yeah, that first time, um, yeah, you know, I was a child of the internet. I spent a lot of time online, and um, I think the powerful thing about tools like the internet is that they can be used in both very constructive and destructive ways.
agreed.
Um, and when I was in that pit of despair, I was just on my computer. I searched in Google at the time, how do I commit suicide? And I remember reading the results, just absolutely feeling so overwhelmed, going to the bathroom. I remember looking over at the bathtub because that was one of the things that I read in the results. Looking in the mirror, looking in my eyes, and I just couldn't believe that I had even done that. That I had actually searched it. Right? It's one
Yeah,
thing to feel it on the inside, right, and think it. It's another thing to actually like take an action in the physical world
yeah,
to search for it, right? And
yeah,
actually picture what that is.
right.
Um, and imagine that. And I just, yeah, I kind of I broke down. Just couldn't believe that I had even done that. And, from there, I, yeah, I just kind of, I was in a sad place and I was eventually like the next day went back to the computer. I was searching for just different things and I was on a forum and I found some people talking about some books and they were talking about how these books really helped them. And they were books like Eastern, spirituality and philosophy um, and so I went to the bookstore and I tried to see if the bookstore had any of those books, and they had some of them. And I picked out some of those books, and that was when I was introduced for the first time to the concept of meditation, was through one of those books. They actually outlined how
Do you
you.
remember which books really spoke to you?
Yeah, there was one author in particular. His name's Jiddu Krishnamurti. He actually has a center in Ojai in California, and he had a book called Inward Revolution. That was one of the first books that I read, and it was in one of his books that I was introduced to meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think and those books allowed me to see life in a different way and also connect to the concept of the higher power in a different way than I had, right? Like I had been going to Christian school, like I said, I was baptized and confirmed, and I had a certain, concept of God. And the books allowed me to create a different relationship with the higher power. Like it wasn't just like a guy, a guy in the sky, but
Big
that
da Sky Daddy.
Sky Daddy, yeah, but that it's pervasive. It was a
Mm,
pervasive thing that was everywhere. It's like in everything.
hmm.
And I felt that on a very deep level. I remember having kind of like an epiphany sort of realization feeling. And, you know, that led me to be able to shift my experience. But I would say that I was spiritual bypassing now, looking back on it. So I couldn't see that at the time. It allowed me to kind of escape from what I was going through in my body
Yeah,
and right exist in this place of sort of euphoria and just like connection to something outside myself.
yeah.
But I still didn't deal with the shit
The
that was inside.
underlying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, to be fair, I mean, it sounded like you really needed some relief.
Yeah.
And how old were you at this time? Were you like 16?
I was 16, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So at 16 years old, it's like you've been carrying this burden for quite some time. You get a new perspective, a new concept of a higher power that feels real. You have a spiritual experience, and what a relief that must have
It
felt
was
like.
huge,
Yeah.
huge. And like so grateful for it. And I think that was the necessary first step
Yeah.
to to right what came later on in my life.
Right. Right. So I want to know what came on later in life because it sounds like you've struggled with this a few times. And so when you come out of this and you started practicing meditation, what kind of meditation? Because I hear people doing walking meditations, silent, like facing the wall kind of meditations, music. I mean, there's a bazillion ways to do it. What was your, progression with that?
Yeah, so the first one that I read in that book was just sitting still, eyes closed, single point of attention. It could be on anything, there could be like
A
candle in
candle,
front of,
flame, or
yeah, or just anything like there, I remember the first time there was just like I had a shutter, like a windowsill, and I just like paid attention to a line on that, and that was it.
okay,
Um, yeah,
literally anything.
literally anything, and just keeping the attention on that, that can progress. Like there are some that, bring the attention to the tip of the nose and the
Hmm.
air coming in and out of the, one of the nostrils or both of the nostrils. One that I eventually, really liked and would do more is just noticing thoughts. So I think of it as like the mind is like a fountain of thoughts, right? And I'm trying to
I know the
get
truth.
to, I'm trying to get to the spout, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think of like there's thoughts that come out and we catch the thoughts at some point, but usually when we catch thoughts, there's already a chain of thoughts that led to that thought.
Yeah.
Um, so I try to bring my attention to the spout so to catch the thought right at the moment that it initially comes out, and then just catch it and then let it go, right?
I've
And
never heard that. I'm totally gonna try that today. So cool.
yeah, yeah. So
Were you doing this daily?
I was doing it not daily, but probably, a few times per week. I was meditating, and then also, um, you know, started going down the rabbit hole, trying different things. Got into like Qigong, which is more of this
Body.
embodied
Yeah.
movement kind of practice. And I think walking meditation is great as well. And I started journaling around that time in high school as well, which I think it obviously is an excellent practice. And I'm building a
Right.
journaling product right now, so
Yeah.
definitely believe in that. Um, so yeah, there was a few different practices that helped me find relief and, find a different perspective in the moment and right, really connect with um, something outside of what I was, uh, I guess experiencing on a deeper level, um, and then yeah, we can go into what happened that led me to finally address it.
Yeah, I'm curious. So you started journaling actually pretty young. Like that's pretty amazing that you adopted that tool pretty early on. What did you write about?
I was a for the most part, I was a crisis journaler, I would say. Like
Like
I
venting on paper about what was going on?
totally, yeah. I remember I'd always like look back at the last entry before I would write my next entry. And there was always something happening.
Yeah.
I did have periods where I would write about like, Dear Diary, here's what I did today. But that practice didn't carry on too much. And there were times where, I'd hear about gratitude, journaling, and then I like would try that, or, and there were other moments where I'd have like epiphanies and I'd write those down. But on the whole, the times where I journaled the most were the times that I was going through the most.
Yeah. It's like emotion. I think I've heard you call it emotional journaling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Emotional
you're
journaling.
processing your feelings on paper.
Exactly. Which
Yeah.
for somebody who can't, like me, who couldn't speak these things to anybody else, right?
Yeah.
Putting it on paper was great. It was
Right.
the best thing that I could do, given that I was deeply uncomfortable with sharing anything with any other human being.
Gosh, that is such a common theme for people in recovery. It's like we're suffering and we don't want to tell anybody that we're suffering. So, starting with a journaling practice where you can just get it all out of you is hugely helpful. And I've heard of people saying the worst thing and then putting it in the fire, right? Like literally, because you don't want people to, like, especially if you're afraid of that someone's going to read it, to say the worst thing ever and then put it in the fire so that it can't be used against you, I suppose. Right? Like, but yeah, that's really important. You had mentioned that you had participated in men's groups. That was like another tool for you. And I know that can we talk a little bit first about like I know you don't have personal experience with having to struggle with addiction, but you've had people in your life that have. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, totally. So, a very close cousin of mine, um, who I grew up with, he was older than me, but I really looked up to him. And he was an addict from age 15 to 25, basically. And, speaking of having the mask on, like we'd hang out when I was like, 7 or 8 and he was 15 or 16, and he would be doing drugs and I had no idea,
You
like
didn't know what he was doing?
I didn't know what was going on at all, right? And nobody really did. But yeah, he and I were very close, and I actually ended up working with him. He ended up becoming sober later, and he and I worked together right after, like while I was in college, and then right after college, I joined full time. And we had a sort of warehouse, and it was a reverse logistics kind of company. And um, one of the amazing things that I'm really grateful for is that I got exposed to AA and the AA community through the process of working and living with him, because we would hire folks from recovery and from folks who were recovered from going through AA. And so a lot of the people that, yeah, I would hang out with were from AA. My cousin would, read from the big book, like as we were driving into work. Sometimes we talk
Wow.
about that at work. And I actually attended some AA meetings myself, which was a really, really, really actually formative experience that I think fed into the realization of the like power of what a men's group is as well, which I
Yeah,
can,
community and men's groups. How did you find a men's group that wasn't 12 step oriented? Because I hear that a lot. Like in our society, we have like this epidemic of loneliness. Like people are so disconnected. I feel like social media has been like poison. It's like this illusion of connectedness, but it's not. It's not real connectedness. Like, and so I see like I have people in my life who really need community, but a lot of people aren't finding that through traditional ways like through church or things like that. So how did you find a men's group that was focused on personal growth, connection, sharing, stuff like that? How did you find that?
I was just really, really lucky.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was just really lucky. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even looking for it. It found me at the right moment.
Wow.
So yeah, so at that time I was living in San Francisco. I had I was going through a confluence of three major transitions. One being, moving to a new city. Two, I had just gotten out of a relationship that was a deep relationship that really stoked all of my fears and insecurities in a huge way. And
How
then
old were you at
three,
this time period?
I was around 26, 27 years old.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. What was the third one?
Yeah, and three was the business that I had actually been working on with my cousin that I spoke about in Austin that had failed. So I was at a place where my
Oh,
like
man.
my identity from a career front, relationship front, friends and community, everything was up in the air.
It's like
And
implosion on the every level.
yeah, and it was the deepest pain that I'd ever experienced in my life. But that pain forced me to address things and confront
Mm.
things that I had been resistant to do before that, right? And I think that's the gift of pain.
Yeah.
Um,
They say that, in the rooms, they say that pain is the touchstone of all growth. And I feel like it creates this opportunity of willingness that's a level of willingness to like drop all your predisposition, all your beliefs about what's possible, who am I, what should I be doing? It's like everything, it's like that post-traumatic growth. It's like you're just willing to just like change everything. And it's very hard to get to that place of extreme willingness until you have like deep pain. They call it the gift of desperation. And it sounds like, man, it sounds rough, but it sounds like you got it.
I got it. Yeah. I mean, it was for me at that point, that was the worst pain that I had really ever allowed myself to even experience, right? Because I could probably mask it and avoid it and all that kind of stuff. But after this was the third time of being severely depressed, and I knew that there was stuff that I needed to deal with that
Yeah.
I could feel it, right? Like can feel I'm sweeping something under the rug. I know there's stuff from my childhood I'm not dealing with.
Mm.
And instead of running away from it that time, I was like, you know what? Like if this is going to keep happening, I might as well just freaking deal with it now. Right?
Right? Yeah, logic kicks in.
Right. And so I just knew I was like, I can't keep going like this. I have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And um, and so I first started seeking a therapist. That was the first step that I took.
What kind of therapy?
Well, I guess I just went with a recommendation from, p other people around me who had done therapy, right?
Hmm.
And so I think it was sort of I can't remember exactly
It's like
probably
talk
co
therapy, maybe?
yeah, yeah, like a talk therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy.
CBT.
I
Yeah.
don't remember exactly which modality of therapy that the first
Yeah.
person I talked to
Yeah. There are
practiced,
so
but
many. Yeah. People that go, oh,
um,
I went to therapy and it didn't work. And I'm always like, well, what kind? What?
yeah, and I think for me the first therapist didn't work, the second therapist didn't work, and then after that, I I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get like 10 therapists recommendations. I'm gonna look up therapists, and I'm gonna come up with some questions that I want to ask every single one of them. And I asked every single therapist the same questions.
What
And then
question did you ask?
basically, like I described what I was going through, what I was experiencing.
Hmm.
And I said, do you have experience, dealing with folks like me? What have you done to like help those folks? Can you tell me a little bit about your approach? And then I asked them generally, like, what's your overall approach to therapy, right? What is your like, yeah, how do you approach therapy in general? What are
Yeah,
your
what's your
beliefs?
modality or
Yeah, what's
whatever?
your modality? All that kind of stuff.
Those are great questions. Can I just interrupt you to tell you how impressed I am that you didn't give up? Like, it pains me when people are like, "Oh, they go to one therapist, like you said, and it didn't work out. You went to another one, it didn't work out, and then you were like, but you decided I'm gonna go to 10. You could find 10 people and you use this systematic approach to really interview them. A lot of times people go to one or two and they just throw up their hands and are like, oh, well, therapy doesn't work for me. And they just go back to suffering. What was it about you that you decided to attack it in that manner?
I think the pain was just high enough. Like that's pretty much it, right?
Did
There's
you
that
have faith that you were going to be able to solve this problem?
I think on some level the first thing was, and I remember being there in such deep pain, and I realized that the only way, because at that point there's despair, you're like, I feel like giving up, right? The suicidal ideation is coming back. Is anything worth it, right? And I realized that on some level, I had to believe that things would get better.
Yeah.
I had to just put my faith in believing that things would get better, even though in that moment there was nothing that was telling me that anything was going to get better. I like on like most levels, I could not see that anything was going to get better, but I just had that feeling. I was like, however delusional it is, I have to believe that things can get better because that's the only way
Okay.
that I'm going to keep pushing through.
Amazing that you brought up the word delusion, right? Because there is such a thing as positive delusion, right? And if we kind of break it down, anything that's not happening right now is a mental delusion, and we tend to ruminate on negative mental delusions. We don't typically ruminate on positive mental delusions, but it's like Schrodinger's cat, right? It's like that experiment where both things could be true. So if both things have an equal possibility of being true, why not go dilute positive delusion, right?
100%.
You
Yeah, and,
know,
and
just yeah.
yeah, I think the thing here and the sort of way that I see it now is that, right, I believe we're all made of various different psychological parts, right? There's the parts of me that are like having that depressed feeling, right?
Hmm.
But there's many other parts of me as well, right? It's kind of like that movie Inside Out where you have the different emotions and
Right,
all that kind of stuff,
right.
right?
I feel like that movie sort of explains internal family systems. I don't know if you,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't use internal family systems because I wasn't sure, but yeah, internal family systems, I love internal family systems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so looking at things from an internal family systems kind of lens, right? In that moment where I was in deep depression, I was just with like that part was like consuming everything,
Right.
right? But that's not the only part that exists, right?
Right.
And so being able to create that like perspective, like have a little bit of distance, just create that tiny bit of distance where there's depression, there's realizing that, hey, I am not depressed. There's a part of me that is depressed,
Yeah.
right? But that's not all of me.
Right.
And then that creates an opportunity to be like, oh, there is a part of me that believes too, right? It may be
Yeah.
quieter in this moment, but it still exists, right?
Yeah.
And when I'm not in the throes of that deep despair, that part can get a little bit louder, or a little bit
Hmm.
more present, right? And
Yeah.
slowly, right, we can kind of move from that place, the part of deep despair and depression kind of running the show because it is such a painful experience. It makes sense that, right, when it happens, we get completely enthralled by it.
Overwhelmed. Yeah.
Right, but it isn't the only part, and we can slowly start to bring in this other part. And I think practices like meditation, when used in that way, right,
Hmm.
when used in an integrative way, can be really, really powerful. So instead of, I was using meditation in a lot of ways to escape and bypass, but
Hmm.
using meditation, mindfulness practice to integrate the internal experiences that you're having I think actually is the maybe the most effective, one of the most effective ways to meditate.
Yeah, that's some spiritual jujitsu there, where you're like actually acknowledging the painful thoughts and the rumination and getting a little bit of distance, like putting, like that is, I am not my thoughts, is a really powerful pivot point, right? Because I feel like I've experienced like deep sadness and it's so easy to identify like I am depressed or I am anxious. Like I tend to lean on the anxious side and to recognize in those moments like, oh, I'm not my thoughts, right? Like, oh, this is just a feeling. And what I loved about IFS is the reframe of how I felt towards the depression, towards the anxiety, because I don't know about you, but I kind of know about you because we all are kind of the same in the sense that it's like, oh, I hate my depression. I hate my anxiety. And the reframe, but you can't hate yourself well, right? And the reframe that IFS gave me was that, oh, this part is actually trying to protect me. It actually has a positive intention. And if I can bring love and compassion like just that reframe of like, oh, I get it now. You're just trying to help me because I'm not able, I don't have the skills, the patience, I have all this self-avoidance. And so you're actually trying to help me avoid myself or avoid these feelings by having this depression. I feel like that's what addiction too is also is that I always felt like the purpose of obsession, addiction, it's distraction. It's distraction from pain that I can't resolve to resolution on my own. And so I love this reframe that you're presenting with these tools. It's like just getting a little bit of separation through the meditation and journaling. Like, oh, these feelings are here to protect me. They're here to teach me something, and that I can lean in and resolve it so that I can be ultimately be kind of free of it.
Yeah, 100%, right? And the magical thing about this work is that as what I found is that as I started integrating and resolving those things within me, it
Mm.
allowed me to show up for other people, right? And in
Yeah.
situations where other people would trigger, might trigger some of those same parts or whatever it is, it just
Yeah.
kind of makes the world a little bit less crazy, right?
Oh my gosh, that's
There's
what we
a
need right now is a little peace.
there's a great quote. There's this guy Raman Maharshi who has this quote. He says, um, "Don't like trying to uh, change the world to avoid your own pain is like trying to wrap the world in leather to avoid the pain of stepping on thorns." He says it's much easier to wear shoes.
It's much easier to, man, I just had a discussion this morning at a meeting. We were talking about triggers, and what's so interesting is this idea of under every trigger is a treasure,
Mm,
right? Like if we can sort of do the lean in approach that you're talking about, like leaning into, like I love how you went through 10 therapists. That was amazing. But it's like, you know what? Let's lean in and let's figure out why am I being triggered? What is underneath this? What tools can I bring to it to resolve it so that because you're right, it's like we're not going to be able to control, what's going on the outside. But when we can actually process those feelings to resolution, then we're actually free. And that is the treasure, right? It's being free of things that used to let those unhealed. It's like what you won't deal with will control you. Like the feelings that you won't
totally.
acknowledge will end up controlling you. And that
Yeah,
happens through triggers.
exactly. And I think the reframe is right. Like when I was younger, I thought through that first foray into spirituality that the goal was sort of enlightenment, right? And that enlightenment was sort of like this, I've escaped, I'm like always good, basically.
Yeah.
And after really doing the internal work, internal family systems, all that kind of stuff, I realized it's about integration rather than enlightenment. It's about, uh, right, when the trigger comes, not bypassing, escaping it, being like, everything's okay, but sitting with it, nurturing it, right? Getting into right relationship with it.
Yeah.
And that's when the knot kind of untangles and right internally there's this sort of sense of harmony. And it's not something that happens once and that's it, right?
Don't I
It's
know
like,
it?
right, it's like this
That's
stuff is like
disappointing.
it's like showers, right? If you don't take a shower for a couple days, you stink, right?
That,
So
yep. Yeah.
so it's a practice,
It's a
right?
practice. Yeah.
What I've unlocked, and I think what you unlock through this journey is the tools and the practices that help create that integration, that help create that centering. And it's
Yeah.
something that I have to continually do because it can get really easy to, right, want to avoid discomfort, avoid pain,
Yeah.
right? Some situation is triggering and then be like, oh, it's their fault, you know? Right? Or
Maybe yes, maybe no.
right. It's their fault, but it's my responsibility to
Right.
deal with it, right? To do something about it.
I
Um,
love that idea that it doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's my feelings are my responsibility. And
right.
yeah, power follows the blame finger, right? Like if you're blaming somebody for triggering you, for making you feel a certain way, they actually have power over you. And as someone who is slightly prideful, that is very offensive. So, like, I want to take my power back. So, recognizing that I have to let go of the blame, that's super empowering. It's like, well, how do I take responsibility for my own failings?
Yeah, and I think the powerful thing again about this kind of work and IFS and parts work is like if somebody's making me upset, can I see them as a part of me, right?
Yes. If you
Because if
spot
I
it, you got it.
exactly. Like if I could treat them as just a part of me, right? And
Yeah.
I consider them like as me in some way,
Yeah.
right? And I've done all this work to integrate my parts,
Yeah.
right? I can hold that with a level of compassion and care, right? And I can
Mhm.
see them as not separate from me,
Right.
right? And I think
Right.
that, right, when we talk about spiritual traditions, interconnectedness is a theme that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
That practice can actually help create a sort of embodied visceral sense of connectedness, like, oh, they are me, this is just
Yeah.
another part of me that is embodied in a different form, right?
Yeah.
But it's another part of me. I've dealt with this part of myself before, right? How would I deal with this part of myself, right? How would I
Yeah.
integrate that? And then I can show up and respond to that situation with the other person in the same way.
Yeah, it's so interesting because in 12 step we there's something called like the angry man's prayer, the sick man's prayer. It's like somebody triggers you, upsets you. You go to your sponsor with your drama and they go, "Oh, you need to pray for that person." And the first time I heard that, I was like, "You mean slash their tires? What do you pray for them? What are you talking about?" And eventually, what I figured out was this idea that people are just mirrors. You can't love or hate something about somebody unless you love it or hate it about yourself. And I recognize like things that I hate in myself or in others. Condescension is something that used to really trigger, like when someone was condescending to me, like that would really trigger me, or people that were rude or self-centered or things like that. I had to it took some courage, but I had to recognize that I also have had those character traits at some time. I was condescending to others. I was rude to others. I've been selfish and self-centered. And it's so funny because we want justice for ourselves, but we want compassion and forgiveness or am I saying that right? We want when someone else is acting like that, we want justice, but when we do it, we want forgiveness. But but this is the process of self-forgiveness is when you see it in someone else, you go, oh, they're afraid. Like when I behaved badly, it was because I was afraid. It was because I was missing some information. It was because I didn't take care of myself and I behaved badly. And then I felt bad about it. So I would shut that part down. And then when someone else does it, I react with the same level of venom. But if I can learn to have compassion, there's this idea that you can't escape the same measuring stick that you judge others by. So if in my judgment
Hmm.
I'm judging someone as, condescending, it's like, oh, but I've been there too, and I did it because I was afraid or whatever. And so when I start to have compassion for the when someone is displaying this, I can have it for myself too. It creates this self-forgiveness and this, so it kind of, leads to this place of peace. But it needed to make sense to me when people were saying, like, oh, if you spot it, you got it. I typically see that in terms of negative attributes, but could also be used for positive attributes too, like recognizing there is, when I admire somebody, it's like, oh, I have those attributes too. So it doesn't have to be all, triggers and shame. It can be positive things because we kind of want to also think about where we want to go. And I noticed in the app, it was I've been practicing it over the last few days in preparation for this conversation. And I noticed that it's also it's like helping me explore my feelings, validating my feelings, but also it's like, well, who do you want to be? What experiences do you want to have? And it's sort of like this acknowledge, validate, accept, but move on type of thing. Was that intentional by design?
Yeah, yeah. The one of the goals of Rosebud is to help you understand what your values are, who you want to become, and help you move toward that. So it does that in you know a sort of subtle way, um and so yeah, the and speaking to the piece of I love that you brought that up, that it can be positive things too that you notice in other people, right? Because if you notice something, right, that means that the first step of anything is creating awareness around it, right? There's so many things that we're just simply not aware of. And if we have an awareness around there's some trait in somebody else that we really admire, for instance, right? Just that awareness means that you're you're able to see it. You might be able to bring that part out in yourself in a way. You might already be bringing it out in a way, but you just want more of it, right? And this is the power of self-inquiry and self-reflection, is that it can help kind of understand, well, what is it about that thing that is so appealing to me, right? Why do I even want that? Where is that coming from? Um, and from that place of deep why, and right, we can kind of ground into, this is why I'm doing this. And tools like Rosebud can help you actually, notice ways in which you are practicing it, notice opportunities to practice things more, right? And help you keep track of that over time, because one of the most powerful things about Rosebud is that it has memory. So
Yeah.
uh, it'll also, call you out basically. Like
That's so important. Yeah, it's not some
it'll
sycophant cheerleader all the time, right? It's like, oh, by the way.
You're right. Like, by the way, you say that you want this, right? And but you talked about this and noticed this pattern, right? So one of the most impactful things about Rosebud is the way that it connects the dots between what happens and helps to create that higher level of awareness, right? Because again, if we're not aware of something, if we're not aware of a pattern that is playing out in our life and our relationships and in ways we might be self-sabotaging current certain things or whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? We don't have that awareness, then we can't do anything about it. It's operating in the shadows, basically. And so we want to bring things from the shadows into the light.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like we all have these blind spots, and I feel like, we that's why we need external input. Like I know you have men's groups and therapy, so like, but this is just another tool to that can be done at any time. That's why I was like, oh, this is going to be really powerful for people. It's like people are not available 24/7. So it's nice to be able to have a tool that is available 24/7 to just help us recognize that, oh, I'm in the pattern again. But really, it's about what do I need? What actions do I need to take that are different? Like, what else can I do? It's like, oh, I'm here in the same spot again. It's like I'm at the end of another relationship. I'm at the end and at the end of another toxic friendship or relationship. I have another failure of some kind. It's like, well, how did I get here? And what do I need to do different? It's nice to have, like something to help you work through all that. And is
And
that what you see for people that are sort of in recovery is just an ability to have like constant 24/7 an opportunity to work through stuff like that?
yeah, I think it's something that can, so often in recovery, you're sort of going from different through different processes, right? You
Yeah, for
go to
sure.
detox and then go to right inpatient and then outpatient and be sober living and so you're going through all these different things. You might be seeing different counselors through that process potentially, right? I think AA is
Yeah.
really powerful because you might have a single sponsor, so that becomes a
Yeah.
through line, right? And
Yeah.
somebody that you can talk to at any time. But um, right, Rosebud can be really powerful because it's something that you can carry with you. It's a journal, right, that you carry
Yeah.
with you through all of these stages of this process, and it's something that can really help in between if there are, you know, AA meetings or meetings with your sponsor or meetings with a counselor. It's something that can help in between those sessions, right?
Right.
And a lot of people use Rosebud to help prep for the next whatever counselor meeting or whatever. It's like,
Oh, nice.
what did I journal about this week? Right. And then
Okay.
it kind of pulls everything up for you. And then
Yeah.
you go into it and you're like, okay, yeah, this is the thing that I need to talk about. Like, what am I, for me in men's groups, for instance, every single men's group meeting, I would go in and I would feel into what am I most afraid to share?
Mm. What did
That
I
was
had a
it.
sponsor who used to ask me, "What is there anything you don't want to say?"
Right. Yeah. And that was that I knew whatever came up, that was the thing I needed to talk about.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like leaning into the discomfort, right?
Yeah.
Creating that space for that practice. And also for folks going through recovery, there's a nightly inventory, right? Like that's
Yeah.
something that, you could use Rosebud for. Um, and right, gratitude practice. We also have a
Yeah.
gratitude journal within Rosebud that,
Nice.
and a real big piece of gratitude is not just what we're grateful for, but why we're grateful for it, which allows us to get a different dimension and meaning on the gratitude, and it maybe allows us to see other things that we're grateful for similar reasons. So um, so yeah, again, it's something that you kind of carry with you. It's something that supports in between sessions. It's something that, if it's whatever, 2 a.m., you wake up in the middle of the night and, you just need somewhere to process something, that it can be a great place. Um, and yeah, I think it's one of the tools that can be a supportive tool in the tool belt, right? I wouldn't rely on it 100%,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
like for me, I needed multiple tools. I was journaling, therapy, men's groups, meditation, everything. I was just like, give me the buffet, right? Because I
Yeah,
have I have shit I need to deal with, right?
for sure.
And I think going through recovery is sort of a similar process. Like it takes a village, and so
It does.
so yeah.
Yeah. No, this is no, I see this as a really powerful tool, and it's kind of one of those things. It's over time you sort of develop this toolbox, right? And so journaling has always been one of my favorite tools to use and to recommend. But there have been times when my journaling practice feels a little stale because I'm just sort of ruminating in my own thoughts. So I could see the potential of, having some, this tool to sort of that knows me and has history and can call me out on my repeating patterns or whatever. Say, hey, have you tried this? Or how do you feel about that? So yeah, I feel like this is a really important tool. Yeah, well done too. I really like using it. I've used it for a few days now, and I'm excited to explore it some more before this episode comes out. So
Thank
well
you.
done. Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, we put a
Was
lot
there
of
anything else I didn't ask you about around the tool or the practices that you want to close with?
um Let me see.
Like how has it like what does your depression, working with depression feel like now?
Mm. Yeah, I think so. I did have a experience of depression even after like the one where I was 26, 27 that led to the, inspiration for Rosebud. But the difference was that I was able to kind of contextualize it and be with it in a way that I knew that, hey, this is just a sadness and I know how to deal with it, right? I just
Yeah.
have to lean into it, share about it, right? Feel the
Yeah.
feelings, not try to cover it up, mask it, escape from it,
Yeah.
right? And that, right, just those practices again, I was able to, it's like a sailor that's sailing over, the seas, right? Like, let's say you're going from, the US to, to Europe across the Atlantic, and you know that, hey, this is a turbulent part of the water, but I know what to do to get through it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference is it's like someone who's sailing that for the first time versus somebody who is sailing it, has sailed it before and is sailing it again,
All
and
right.
now actually has the proper tools to deal with it. And when the big wave comes, isn't freaking out and being like, actually let's turn left and go completely somewhere else, or right, let's not go to Europe, let's go to Antarctica, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's that calm, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what these practices provide. And if there was something that I would tell myself as going back to that 15, 16-year-old Sean is, you know, the pain is a gift, right? Lean into the pain, lean into the discomfort. It's okay, right? There's nothing that you're experiencing that other people don't experience, right? We all, like you said, we all have the same stuff that we're going through. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about AA and about men's groups is that it just allows you to see how really connected we all are and how all this
Yeah.
stuff that we carry and go through, it's not like we invented it, right? We didn't invent
Right.
any of this stuff, right?
Right.
This is stuff everybody shares. It's existed for a long time,
Yeah.
right? We might be carrying it in this moment, but we didn't invent it. And it's through, bringing it out into the light, whether that's journaling, whether that's with community, um, that actually allows for the healing to happen.
That's beautiful. I feel like that's a great place to sort of wrap up. And I just want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for your transparency. I love what you're doing. AI journaling is really opening up a whole new path for people to be able to process their feelings to resolution. So well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to chat with you today.